Does the Book of Mormon contain any information about the New World that Joseph Smith could not possibly have known at the time, but which has since been substantiated by archaeological or historical discoveries? The question is highly significant, particularly given that apologetic literature often includes demonstrably inaccurate claims about the limit of Joseph Smith's knowledge. For example, some apologists assert that Smith could not have known about the existence of cities or civilizations in ancient America. Such assertions are demonstrably false. By the early 19th century, the idea that American cities had once existed on American soil was common knowledge among Americans. A closer look at this belief provides insight into the intellectual and cultural environment in which Joseph Smith came of age. During the prophet's youth, the westward expansion of the United States into the Ohio Valley revealed numerous remains attributed to ancient mound-building cultures. These included elaborate earthworks, linear road systems, and large sculpted figures. Although many of these sites have since been destroyed or lost, they were well documented and widely discussed at the time. One of the most notable of these is the Newark earthworks in Ohio, which became part of a white settlement in 1802. When Ohio first became a state in 1803, its first capital was surrounded by similar archaeological features. The Serpent Mound, one of the most iconic of such formations, was first surveyed in 1815. As settlers continued to move westward towards the Mississippi River, they encountered even more impressive sites, such as the Cahokia Mounds, which were accessible by steamboat from St. Louis in 1818. Reports of these discoveries spread widely through the newspapers and printed illustrations and travel accounts. The idea that the ancient continent had once supported advanced settlements was widely accepted, though these were not attributed to contemporary Native American populations. Instead, the common belief held that these structures must have been built by a lost, more civilized people, unknown immigrants who had long since vanished, likely eradicated by hostile Native American tribes. In this context, the narrative of the Book of Mormon reflects not a prophetic insight into the past, but rather a reiteration of the prevailing ideas circulating in American society during the 1820s. This cultural backdrop has also helped clarify where Joseph Smith and his early followers imagined that the events of the Book of Mormon might have taken place. They did not envision the story unfolding in some distant or vague part of the Americas, but rather placed it in a familiar domestic geography, areas in and surrounding the United States. They believed that the mounds and artifacts being unearthed across the country provided tangible evidence for the civilizations described in their sacred text. In 1834, for example, while traveling through western Illinois near Grigsville, Joseph Smith identified a burial mound as the resting place of Zelph, a supposed white Lamanite from Book of Mormon times. This site lies roughly halfway between Cahokia and the future city of Nauvoo. Now, one might say that Joseph Smith had a talent for conjuring romance and meaning from the world around him at a moment's notice. The following day, he wrote the following:
"The whole of our journey, in the midst of so large a company of social honest and sincere men, wandering over the plains of the Nephite, recounting occasionally the history of the Book of Mormon, roving over the mounds of that once beloved people of the Lord, picking up their skulls and their bones, as a proof of its divine authenticity, and gazing upon a country the fertility, the splendor, and the goodness so indescribable, all serves to pass away time unnoticed."
If one seeks a detailed representation of how Joseph Smith and his contemporaries envisioned the geography of Nephite and Lamanite America, one need look no further than existing maps of mound builder archaeological sites. These maps provide a clear visual parallel to the imagined world of the Book of Mormon. It was not until the 1840s, following increased recognition of Mesoamerican ruins and the burgeoning field of Central American archaeology, that Mormon interest began to shift towards that region. Therefore, anyone attempting to locate potential remnants of the Book of Mormon civilization should direct their attention to the eastern United States and the Midwest, areas that have been extensively excavated and studied by professional archaeologists. These regions are home to numerous large-scale ancient settlements and ceremonial complexes, which could superficially resemble the temple cities described in Mormon scriptures. Sites such as Cahokia, Newark, Etowah, and Moundville stand as prominent examples. However, there is unanimous agreement among credible scholars that these sites were built by ancestors of historical Native American communities. No serious academic questions this conclusion, and this point cannot be stressed enough. While most LDS apologetic writings are benign in tone and intent, the discourse surrounding ancient American civilizations often takes a problematic turn. A recurring motive in this literature is the assertion that the origins of North and Central American archaeological sites remains an unsolved enigma. Pseudoarchaeology, which often operate under the belief that the native peoples of the Americas were incapable of such architectural or cultural sophistication. According to this primitive worldview, some unknown, more advanced race must have been responsible for these accomplishments, one that subsequently vanished, leaving no trace but their monumental works. A common hallmark of these apologetic narratives is the proposition that a pre-Indian race once flourished on the continent. This framework is nearly identical to the discredited scholarly debates over the builders of Great Zimbabwe in Central Africa, where for decades, white academics resisted the now obvious conclusion that sub-Saharan Africans constructed those impressive ruins. As we're wrapping things up here, and to put things very plainly, there is simply no legitimate mystery regarding the creators of the ancient architectural and cultural features found throughout the Americas. These sites were constructed by indigenous peoples, Native Americans, First Nations, or dare I say, in the way that Joseph Smith might have phrased it, Indians.